All right, welcome back. We are talking with Jeff Lindsay of Sanford C, Bernstein, and Ken Auletta, author of the book Google, The End of the World as We Know It. And I mentioned just before the break that maybe the thorny issue is the terms that actually get paid by potentially Microsoft. I mean, would Microsoft, they've got tons of cash, Jeff. I mean, would they potentially pay a lot of money here to kind of have exclusive content?
Well, they're currently paying $100 million for advertising just to get Bing to take some share from Google. Ironically, the way this is working out, Bing is taking share, but it's taking it from Yahoo, with whom Microsoft wants to combine probably next year. We think that it's no coincidence, by the way, that Google is in the middle of a renegotiation with MySpace. And MySpace is owned by News Corp. And that's been one of the most lucrative deals for MySpace in internet history. And we think that News Corp are really using these issues to ratchet up the pressure on Google to try and get this renewal on more favorable terms.
Well, you know, if you pick up on that point, and I agree with that, Jeff, but when Google made that deal with MySpace some years ago for $900 million, by the way, it was a loss leader for them. They did it in order to gain more traffic, and at the time, MySpace was a bursting at the seams company. You could imagine Microsoft today doing a loss leader with it. You wouldn't just do it with the Wall Street Journal and Murdoch. You would try and get the New York Times and some others in there.
Providers, right?
But really good content providers that you would rank high in your search results. And if you had them and Google didn't, that might be an advantage for Bing.
But you make the point that then all the other newspapers line up for the similar deal. I mean, isn't that a problem then?
I mean, not all can get the same deal. I mean, not everybody's the New York Times and everybody's the Wall Street Journal.
Precisely. And by the way, many of Murdoch's papers are not the Wall Street Journal. So there'll be some pushback on Microsoft's part there. But there's no question, if newspapers have the illusion that somehow Microsoft or Google is going to make them whole again, they've got another thing coming.
So if it is indeed the way, going to go down the way you say it, that they are making basically a grab for market share here, that has to be short-lived, right? I mean, eventually newspapers are going to make their money online with online advertising. I can't imagine any other way.
Well, the problem is that you're in the middle of a technological shift and that you're moving away from the old paper-based paradigm to online. And online's a different set of economics, it's different overheads. You can't chop down trees and turn them into paper anymore and print on them. And I think that you're seeing this very painful transition. As the newspapers have declined in value, you've seen almost an exact rise in the value of internet companies, and somehow the newspapers are equating the two. We think it's a false comparison. It just happens that you're in the middle of a major technological shift, and the newspapers are unfortunately on the wrong end of that. We think over probably the next 5 years, the newspapers will get more and more online savvy and come up with better online strategies and ultimately make a transition to much more online content.
Jeff, you cover Google. I mean, I'm just curious how all this thinking, this wrangling with News Corp and so on, kind of factors into your thinking about the company, if at all.
Well, we think it's going to have very little effect on Google. The reason is that although it's 12% of News Corp's traffic comes from Google, only about 10 basis points of Google's traffic overall would be affected. So if News Corp were to shut them off, it would be an amazingly damaging thing for News Corp to do to itself, but it wouldn't really impact Google's bottom line very much at all. And so Google could probably afford to let them, threaten it. In Mountain View, they're probably not terribly concerned about this as an issue. I think they're probably more concerned about the renewal of the MySpace deal, and that's probably what this is really tied to in the long run.
And of course, you'd still be able to find this stuff, right? If you search for some Wall Street Journal articles on Google, they're going to come up on realmarkets.com or some of the other aggregator sites, which you can just click through straight through the Wall Street Journal.
But that actually makes the commodity point in a major way, because if in fact there's a paywall behind the Wall Street Journal and some other newspapers, but you can find the information you want. It may not be as good, but you may not know it. You can find it elsewhere. Then you've commoditized the Wall Street Journal and the Times, and you've weakened them. And go back to Jeff's point, you've lost all that traffic, and what have you got left?
So let me ask you, Ken, I mean, do you think then this is the beginning, though, of the model changing dramatically? I mean, the model's already changing, no doubt about that.
I think one of the things that's going on here is there's an attempt by newspapers to try and figure out, is there some way to monetize our product as we move in this transitional period to an online newspaper, which is much cheaper to produce. But if you did it now, the math doesn't work, so you lose more than you gain. The question is, can I charge, not just can I charge Microsoft, but is there a micropayment system, subscription system, for instance, the way you have with Amazon?
Right.
I mean, you have the Kindle. I mean, you can subscribe to the Wall Street Journal or the New York Times and read it monthly and pay. They're trying to figure that out, but that effort to monetize newspapers runs up against the culture of the internet, which is information is free. And that's a major issue, how that resolves itself.
All right.
It would be actually very difficult if you think for the newspapers to make an effective cartel in order to stop this happening. And so the chances of it happening are actually very slim.
All right, we're going to leave it there. Jeff, thank you so much. Jeff Lindsay of Sanford C. Bernstein, and also author Ken Auletta. We appreciate their time this afternoon.